I am pleased to introduce Dr. Elaine Hansen, Executive Director of the Center for Talented Youth at Johns Hopkins University, to share her insights into the state of liberal education. Dr. Hansen is the past president of Bates College, where she had a profound impact on the campus's diversity, community, and scholarly ambition. She met Dr. Marcy while chairing the accreditation team for Bard College at Simon's Rock. In addition to being a leading scholar of medieval literature and feminist theory, Dr. Hansen is widely recognized as one of the nation's most thoughtful and articulate defenders of the liberal arts. I present to you Dr. Elaine Tuttle Hansen.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here on this wonderful day for Dominican University, and it's a real privilege to join you in this great ritual moment in the life of such a venerable academic institution on the threshold of a new era under the leadership of an innovative and creative president. I have spent what I will deliberately call the better part of my life, close to 4 decades, on college or university campuses, studying, teaching, leading, and always, in all my roles, still learning and feeling that there was so much more to learn. I've been blessed to learn with and from an awesome group of teachers, students, friends, and colleagues, among whom I'm so pleased to count Mary Marcy, and I would say that she stands out as a thinker and a doer who has taught me a great deal, as she will teach and learn with all of you. She is a philosopher by training who brings savvy political insight and keen business intelligence to the world of ideas. And my theme today is that this integration of skills and values, too often set apart in our world, is key to the success of American higher education today. You know that you are fortunate to have President Marcy at the helm of Dominican, but the whole point of ritual moments is arguably to reiterate and thus reinforce what you already know. So let me point out, too, that this time of internal transition for Dominican coincides with a time of great transition in the worlds that Dominican must now engage. For all of higher education, it is a particularly unsettling time of flux and uncertainty, and if I may use such words on such a joyous day, a time of anxiety and even danger. I use those words lightly today. Don't think about them too hard on this sunny day, but I do feel that we are in the midst of a looming crisis for higher education, and it is time for us all to think about how we can be part of the solution. In his address to the joint session of Congress on February 24th, 2009, President Obama announced the vision intended to change the landscape of higher education in the United States. By 2020, he proclaimed, America will once again have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world. College was loosely defined in this mandate. This can be community college, he said, or a four-year school, vocational training, or apprenticeship. The pronouncement focuses welcome attention on the importance of post-secondary education, but to implement such broad aspirations, we now need a national conversation not only about issues of access, funding, and quality, but also, and more fundamentally, about purposes. Currently, there is no common understanding of why we need to provide higher education for more Americans, or what a better system would look like and achieve. Is it about jobs or happiness, skills or knowledge, attitude or values, individual accomplishment or the common weal, or maybe the nation's global competitiveness? Amid the messiness and sprawl that is public discourse today about education, We hear mostly about test scores and accountability and costs. The situation remains, as Patricia Graham described it 25 years ago in her essay, Schools, Cacophony About Practice, Silence About Purpose, where she argued that, quote, we Americans, who are appropriately vociferous in our critiques of education generally, need to come to fundamental agreement about what we want our schools to do, unquote. More recently, Tony Breich, president of the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, has attributed some, if not all, of the failures of our educational system to this same clamor of voices debating practice and policy and silent on the question of purposes. Into this cacophony, how should we frame an argument? How should we take part in a dialogue about the purposes of higher education today? One way I will suggest might be to look closely back at a book written about 10 years ago called Good Work, When Excellence and Ethics Meet. This book reports on a study undertaken by 3 psychologists, Howard Gardner, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and William Damon, who began from their perception that psychology as a discipline, and I hope I'm not offending any psychologists here today, that psychology as a discipline had not adequately examined work as a human experience. They were particularly interested in the kind of work that Dominican graduates and supporters hope to find and expect to do, which they call good work. Work that on the one hand is of high quality and demonstrates expertise and offers personal satisfaction to the individual, and work that at the same time is also understood as ethically responsible and beneficial to society. Good work, in other words, involves both doing well and doing good. Gardner and his colleagues approached their project with a common concern that many educators and students share. Work that feels good to individuals and is also respected by the community is harder and harder to find in a time of rapid change, when both the technologies to do work are in constant flux and commonly shared values seem more and more difficult to find. To answer the question, what does it mean to carry out good work in a time of constant change, the authors chose to study what they thought of as 2 parallel groups of professionals whose work is highly influential today and has been profoundly altered by the information revolution. And so they looked at geneticists who are dealing with massive amounts of new information about our bodies, and they looked at journalists who must adjust to the technological and global revolution in information that influences what we know and think. As Gardner and his colleagues conducted in-depth interviews with more than 100 of each of these professionals, they came to realize that the 2 professions differed chiefly in terms of their alignment with social values. Oversimplifying and overgeneralizing, they found that geneticists were generally happy and fulfilled because their work is well aligned with the perceived needs and values of society and generally well respected and trusted. Geneticists interviewed led hectic lives, but for the most part believed that they were doing good work. And they enjoyed the thrill of scientific discovery and felt that science foregrounds an important kind of rational thinking that is missing in many other parts of our world. The only potential disturbance in the field for the geneticists came from concerns about the effect of new opportunities for great wealth associated with genetics and with various ethical concerns about the ownership and use of information about the body. And I might note that a decade later, since the publication of Good Work, this concern has only grown. A good example of it can be seen in another more recent book that many of you may have read called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, with its gripping examination of the unforeseen ethical implications of early genetics work conducted at my new home institution, Johns Hopkins University. This concern notwithstanding, though, geneticists are happy. Journalists, by contrast, are despondent, according to the study, working in a misaligned domain in which they are often criticized both internally and externally. Those interviewed said that they valued truth and objectivity and fairness in principle, but felt that the profession as a whole could not say it was living up to its own ethical standards. They complained about the lack of time to do good work in a field where information technology emphasizes speed over reflection. And they worried about the dominance of the profit motive, as editors now must consult the market researcher before deciding which stories can go forward and be published. Gardner and his colleagues continue to study good work in other professions to this day. They have a project, an ongoing project called the Good Work Project. They believe that individuals who care about doing good work represent the best hope for our future. They call upon individuals to take the initiative one by one to find and do good work by focusing on what they term the 3 M's: mission, models, mirror. Focusing on the mission is what we might think of as seeking a calling, acting out of a sense of moral identity and being true to one's best self and the highest ideals of one's profession. If the sense of calling degenerates, Gardner warns, the moral identity slips away. Finding models involves looking for other workers who, quote, realize the calling best, unquote. And it is incumbent upon any leaders in any field to, quote, affirm the values of a domain so that others, especially young professionals, quote, take heart. The mirror test, finally, involves asking, how do I feel about myself when I look in the mirror? And what would it be like to live in a world if everyone were to behave in the way I do? Now, good work focuses mostly on individuals because the authors are interested in questions about personal identity. Yet they do also touch on the role that institutions can play, suggesting that, quote, the strongest lever for good work resides in those organizations that already embody it. While they note somewhat in passing in their conclusion that higher education has an important role to play, I'd like to close by suggesting that universities and colleges are in fact key, and that herein lies our highest and best use. No experience can or should be more formative in the foundational development of people who will do good work than the kind of engaged educational opportunities made possible by places like Dominican University. You have the mission. It is profound, it is clear, it is a calling, it is an institutional will to serve the common good. And, as I am sure the search committee recognized in hiring Mary Marcy, M.M., those very initials tell you that you have in your new president the model and the mirror. A model of best academic practice who absolutely embodies the power and reach of this calling, and a mirror who can reflect it back to each and every member of the Dominican community who chooses to look. Felicitations to you, Mary, President MM, I will call her, and to all of you here. Thank you for letting me join in the celebration of this place. I know you will cherish its purposes and do good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hansen, very much for an inspiring talk. As you know, Dominican shares your dedication to providing a comprehensive liberal education that encourages all students to be critical thinkers, lifelong learners, seekers of the truth, and in service to the world and for good work. Thank you very much.